and welcome to Talking with Family People. My name is host Eric, and we're going to begin this episode, which I believe will probably be about politics, with Hami. And I'm going to go around the table after that, hopefully, if I remember. Thank you. Go ahead, Hami.
I was just gonna say that I feel like Trump is actually gonna be a lot more moderate than people think.
Okay. Mr.
I don't even know if he
Haberdasher.
moderate.
Okay, Unify, you go next. So, what do you think? How do you think his policies are going to differ from the status quo?
Well, if he even knows what he will do when he president, then yeah, it'll differ greatly from. It would be a lot more moderate because he seemed a lot more socially liberal and a lot more conservative. He's more libertarian than anything, right? So, and like I said, the truth prevails overall. People start to see through the fake and the political robotic talk. Then they can start to see authenticity. And Trump himself, he believes what he's saying, right? So,
Well, he makes a lot of process arguments, which says, basically, I'll engage in smart processes to solve this problem. Well, what are you going to do? Well, I don't have an exact plan. I'll engage in the smart processes that I use to solve
right.
problems. Mr. Haberdasher, you got a thought?
Well, from what I know of, I live in California, and I've been around. Arnold Schwarzenegger was government. Was head of our state government, and he was an actor, and he was in that whole business, and he never burned my state to the ground. So, I think that Trump or Hillary, either way, I think that they won't burn the country down too much.
I think we can
In
expect from
different
Hillary
ways.
more of the same, basically. Nande, you got any thoughts?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, Nandi.
I do not.
Okay. Back to you, Unify.
Well,
You can pass
I'm
if you want.
just. I mean, it's just I'm passionate, but it's more of not Hillary or Trump. It's Bernie. But
It's
I
like,
know
when you look, my opposition to Bernie is generally sort of an opposition to the sort of liberalism he symbolizes. I actually don't really know much what his proposed policies are. I don't really care.
But it's authentic. That's the point. It's him. It's him being like, hey, I like you, the people. I'm relating to you. I'm for you. I'm not just trying to be president to get what they call shit done, even though nothing gonna get done, no matter who president. I'm trying to actually stand for you. So the choices you make,
but I would.
it'll reflect me, the president. You know what I'm saying?
But wouldn't
I
you
will do
rather
what you
have
say.
Unify? Okay, let me ask you this question, Unify. Would you rather have a president that is honest, authentic, transparent, and genuinely trying his best for
Yeah.
your interests and making bad decisions, or a president who is sneaky and scheming and not transparent, but making decisions
Some
that
do
actually
too.
help you?
But that's the thing. These scheming politicians, they don't make decisions that help us. So why pick another one of those? Why not try the person that actually care for you?
Okay, but here's the point. My point is this: the only way that a politician can make a decision that helps us is by dismantling some of the existing legislation that hurts us. There's no way you can come up with a government program that's going to help people because it's not possible to do a good deed by stealing something and then blah. It's like you can't ignore the first part. It's already poisoned the whole thing. So, in my mind, there's no way to fix those problems except to stop making them bigger and contributing to them with your governmentiness. Okay, let's move on to. But I'll come back to you, Unify. I don't mean to leave you without a rebuttal chance there. Eric, do you
No
have
problem.
thoughts on this? Eric is mic off apparently. Nandi, I'm coming back to you if you have any
Like I would
thoughts.
say, oh,
Hami,
yeah, I would say that I think that Bernie has good intentions. It's just that his policies I don't agree with. The whole socialism stuff.
I think
Like,
we had.
what,
You
what,
I think
gotta
that
what
would
in
understand.
just
particular?
It would just it would actually just wreck our economy further.
I think the problem is this: if you're no matter how smart you are, you can't figure out a way to make it such that government taking our money and spending it for us is more efficient way to attain the good than letting people spend their own money how they think is fit. So to the extent that we think, well, public schools are good, Compton, you better shut the fuck up. To the extent that we think that public schools are good, we're saying it's a good idea for you to take my money and spend it to educate my kid for me rather than letting me do it. But we don't tend to think of it that way. And some people say, well, I do like that. I like the idea that there's this person who I don't think about it at all. Okay, well, fine. But even if that were the case, there's no reason to prefer the government doing that over a private market solution to that. So the problem is a framework. It's the notion that we can talk post fiat. After the money is stolen, what should we do with it? Okay, let's have a big argument about that. No, that's what Bernie wants to do. That's what Hillary wants to do. Trump, at least, is not 100% like that, right? He's more, maybe, we'll have to actually talk about shit a little bit. But if all you want to do is debate the round after the money's stolen, I don't even want to consider you as having anything to say about the matter. Because you're not talking about the thing that matters, which is, look, this is stolen money. You keep saying, how should we spend it? Well, how about we give it back to the people it was stolen from?
Okay, now see what you saying right now. If you was to
No, and
have
also,
this, if you was to have this debate with Bernie, right? Somebody who actually, if anybody who actually cared about your views, you can't have this conversation with Trump or even Hillary. You can't have this conversation where she would actually consider your views as a person and
Okay,
implement it into her own ideas.
but here's the thing. Bernie can't have this conversation either. If he's serious and wants to sit down and have this conversation seriously, and then if I want him to say going into the conversation, all right, Eric, if you can establish a whole set of contradictions that I can't reconcile,
Right.
and I lose all these points despite my best effort, I'll agree with you and concede that my whole political philosophy is wrong. But he won't do that. He'll waste my time, and eventually he'll
I've
quit because he won't be able to answer my points, and he'll get frustrated with me just not getting it. You just don't get it, which means my feelings keep telling me that you're wrong. I don't care how much your logic shows me that you're wrong, that I'm wrong. You know?
Would he not consider it? That's my whole point.
Who
If I'm
cares if he
president,
considers it?
no, because Bernie Bernie's ideological. Like, no matter what you say, he already has his fixed views on
He has
things. He's
faith
not gonna
on that
change.
shit. I'm ready to be
That's the
convinced.
problem with Bernie.
I am ready to be
Yeah,
convinced I'm wrong about anything. But you gotta win the point.
and I think that's the problem with Hillary too. Trump looks like the type of person that would actually listen and consider your point, and if you're right,
He's
he'll accept it.
reacting in the moment. As
No.
new
But
data
Hillary
comes
and
in,
Bernie, like
he wants the flexibility,
Hil-
Trump does. He wants the
Hillary
flexibility
and
so as new data comes in. Go ahead, sorry to interrupt.
yeah, like Hillary and Bernie, they already have their fixed views on things, and no matter what you say, they're not gonna change.
He speaks truth.
he speaks
And they've
from
been in DC
his.
for so long.
What needs to happen in general is people like that, there needs to be social pressure on them to stay at the table and keep answering questions until they either admit they're wrong or answer my questions correctly, answer them in a way that doesn't create contradictions. You
Yeah, but
know,
somebody like Trump, whose truth within himself might not even be existent, or if it it is constantly molding and changing to the
like
crowd that
reality
he trying.
itself. Like reality itself, though. You see, that's the problem.
Like
The
it's
process argument is the correct argument to make. How will you deal with this problem, President Eric? Well, it will depend on lots of contextual factors. When I'm in that moment, I will look at all the possibilities using my NE, then in conjunction with my TI to analyze it. I will access my extroverted feeling to determine how it's going to actually impact people in the real world, how many lives it's going to impact negatively, and then I will use SI to reference past examples and other stuff like that in conjunction with TI. I'm going to make that process happen, and then I will make a decision accordingly. I can't tell you right now how I'm going to deal with that because it depends on too many variables that I can't predict. What I can tell you is that my mind is up to the task.
But you just made the logic within yourself of your NE and your TI and all that stuff. You made that logic persistent within you. I'm saying in Trump, we don't know what his true self is. We don't. He can't even
That's it.
explain who
That
he
is
is.
it. He doesn't need to explain it. That
Wait, let me
he
ask
has
you,
that in a raw form.
what does Trump do for a living?
He beats Trump like me. I mean, that's what I do for
No,
a
I'm
living.
saying,
I'm Coach Eric, or I'm
what does
Host
Trump do
Eric,
for
or
a
I'm
living
whatever.
though?
Huh?
What does Trump do for a living though?
That's it. He's Trump. He sells
He's a
himself.
businessman, right?
Yeah, well, he makes a TV show. He sells himself. He's got multiple revenue streams. He's got properties he owns. He's got a casino. He's got all kinds of shit going on. He's got his name all over everything, right? Because he's an ESTP. He's not subtle at all. He's just like,
And like
I know how to
he's
be
involved.
successful. I'll put Trump on the building as big as I can. It's like, yeah, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Let's do that. What's the first fucking thing that come to your mind? I'll name it Trump. I'll name this building Eric. That'll be cool. Everyone will be like, yeah, that's Eric's building. It's so fucking stupid, right? But that's ESTP stupid right there.
So go ahead.
Well, I'd rather face the hard, blunt truth from Trump than any soft, deceiving lie from Hillary.
Yeah, but what truth is true? What is his truth?
Okay.
If your only truth is changing day to day, why should I believe that you believe what you say is true?
Okay, I'd like to answer that question and Eric's as well. Eric says, wouldn't that mean he doesn't have well thought out ideas? The bottom line is the reason my NE process arguments are better than his SE process arguments is because I'm telling you my NE process arguments will adhere to a specific framework, a negative rights framework, in which I prioritize above all else non-causing aggression against people. So in other words, I have no problem with responsive violence. I'm not going to violate rights. The Strauss administration is not going to violate rights. We know that. How am I going to manage to not violate rights in this area? I don't know. I'll have to figure that out on the fly. But you can trust me to stick with this framework. I am willing to commit to that. I know which ground I am absolutely committed to. It doesn't commit me to a specific course of action, but it precludes lots of courses of action. That's the difference. Trump hasn't thought it out because he's an SC dumb and he doesn't know anything. I mean, he's doing the best he can.
Trump,
We can trust the seat of his pants. The seat of his pants are pretty good.
Also, Trump is a businessman, and his whole entire job is having advisors and listening to them. If he doesn't take their advice and he doesn't make the right decision, his business crashes down. While Hillary and Bernie, they have these think tanks that tell them what they want to hear, and they keep doing the same thing over and over.
Well, here's the thing.
And there's no accountability.
I suspect Trump listens to his advisors a lot less than you think. Okay, first of all, I don't think he seeks advice in the same way that you think somebody ought to seek advice. I don't think he seeks advice the same way Hillary seeks advice. I think that it's like, I mean, he is a loose cannon, which means he doesn't see the point in bullshit, and he doesn't quite get that his common sense truths need to have a framework, or else it's just his arbitrary opinion. And thank you, Eric. I do plan to run president, as we've talked about a couple times today. I've readjusted my time frame. I'd like to be president before I'm 70, which means sometime around 60 probably start to push hard, or maybe before then. It depends how things develop. Again, process argument here. I'm actually engaged.
Might be too old.
I might be too old, but I don't know. I anticipate that I will.
At 70 might be too old, especially smoking weed through.
70 is too old, right? I don't want to be 70. That's what I was saying. But that's the age of 50, 60, 70. In that range, people are able to become elected president, no problem. That's generally the range in which people do get elected president. You have to be at least 35. So, yeah, I do plan to run for president, and I do think I have a legitimate shot, and I do think I will clean up a little bit. But I will worry more about tone. I'll be less abrasive, perhaps, but I want to have essentially the same fundamental approach, which is I am not here to play defense. I'm here to attack you. I'm here to attack you at the core foundational wrongness of your beliefs. I'm here to show that you are not a viable option as as an elected official at all. You can call yourself my opponent in this election. I call you the thug who's advocating for violence. And you can't answer any of my questions. You want to stand there and continue to spout off your lies and your bullshit and your meaningless moot nonsense. You want to argue about what we should do after you steal the money from us. I'm saying stop stealing the fucking money. I want that to be the core message. You know? Which is, you're in a room where you're not going to be allowed to lie. I'm not going to let those debates, I'm going to cause those debates to melt the fuck down. If I can get on a debate stage, I want that whole fucking debate to melt down. I want to start, when I hear this person say, it is my belief that there are millions of hardworking poor Americans out there who need every last penny to make ends meet. I'm going to say, I believe that you are full of fucking shit. Why don't you stop your goddamn lying? And that's going to melt down the whole thing, right? Now, all of a sudden, something completely unprecedented has occurred. And they have no possible way to deal with it that comes from any past experience. And it's righteous indignation, the truth of it, the legitimacy of it, is based on the fact that you have argued none of the core points here. I've given you, everybody in this country, countless reasons why this position you are advocating, and so on and so, and this behavior you're displaying of obfuscating issues and truth in favor of fucking bland Hallmark card lie bullshit is morally wrong. You are a moral reprobate, you scumbag. Then what are they going to do?
You can get them to change their own views to match yours. So they people who care, they touch themselves to war. You got to convince these people that, hey, you won't be popular amongst the people unless you have my view, because they politicians. They change often. They like Trump. They change day to day. They change day to day. They policy ideas and their core value ideas.
Well, I mean, the thing is, my core thing is I want to get in the room with them in person. And I want to make it such that they're scared to engage in status quo behavior in my presence. Because I will call them on their bullshit. And they're not used to anybody ever doing that. Not really. People get up and they say something like, you hate America because you like corporations. Like some stupid fucking political thing like that kind of heckling. That's going to fail utterly. Heckling needs to be a personal attack on their ethics that's driven by the nature of their argumentation. You are choosing a form of argumentation that is designed to deceive people. You are a liar by nature, if not in the specifics of your words. And you are unethical, and you need to help. I am holding you to account for that now, sir. Answer my question. That needs to be the 3 words that come out of your mouth more often than any others if you want to attack the status quo. Answer my fucking question. 4 words. You should really put the fucking in there. They don't want to answer any questions. All the people who are doing injustice things, like the cops, politicians, they don't want to answer questions. That's the number one thing they don't want to do. That's enough. Here's my public relations person. Well, I'm sorry, we can't answer any questions about that right now. The investigation's underway. That's all we can say about it. I'm sorry. That should be considered the exact same thing as that PR person going to the press room and saying, hello, welcome, just stand where you are, please, each of you, and then walking up to each person in turn and spitting in their face. That's exactly what that is, and it should be treated like that. When reporters are in that fucking press room and the cops up there explaining how they're not going to answer any questions about how their cop shot some unarmed person again, the press needs to say, you provide reasons why you can't tell us any answers to this. But it seems to me it's because you're criminals who are trying to hide and cover up your crime. Now, you have a long history of this kind of bullshit, so why don't you stop your lying and tell us something? Somebody needs to say that, obvious truths and obviously things one ought to be indignant about need to elicit that response of obvious indignation and righteous truth. Now I'll get myself all worked up here.
I think the times that's happened,
Okay.
the times that happened, let's say like with CNN, like Hillary Clinton's biggest donator is the owner of CNN, and so CNN when she's debating anybody and somebody calls her out on her bullshit, CNN will literally censor what has just happened because they sponsor the debate, and so people who call them out on their shit get censored essentially.
That's why you need to be a candidate. Candidates have a better ability to make their voice heard than regular people, but because otherwise you're just a protester or something. if you're up in there in the game and you're making moves that invalidate their playing style, it's going to cause, it's going to be like kicking an anthill. That's why they're desperate to keep libertarians out of any of the debates. They never let libertarians into the debates because libertarians always win the debates, and they make the other people look foolish. But they don't do it like I want to do it. I mean, I want to blow up the labyrinth.
Okay. Say you do run with this, or belief, or whatever you call it. One, what would you actually call this in representation to what a Republican or Democrat is? And secondly, how would you react if somebody else with a similar philosophy and belief of, well, fuck it, let's just be honest? How would you react if they ran against you?
I would love it because I'd say, yes, let's be honest together. Now, make your arguments. Now, answer my questions. I will be happy to answer yours. My position is sound. I've spent years developing it. I know what I'm talking about. I can win every fight. I have a clear framework. It's a negative rights framework. I have a clear process argument that is based on a constraining framework that precludes me from taking certain actions. You will not be able to predict from me how a Strauss presidency will behave, but you will be able to predict with 100% certainty how it will not behave. And that's vastly more important. And here's why. Answer these questions. Answer these points. I want you to come at me like I'm coming at you, because unlike you, I'm right.
Wait, would you run as a Republican though?
Yeah, probably.
What if the Republican Party doesn't back you?
Trump made it. If I'm rich enough, I could do it. If I'm rich enough, no problem. I'm a lot more backable than Trump, because unlike Trump, I can have that Trump disarming, disrupting thing going on, but unlike Trump, I can beat their best intellectual by a long margin. Because they're wrong. That's why. Not because I'm some super genius. It's because they're attached to wrong beliefs that aren't consistent, that don't withhold scrutiny, don't withstand scrutiny. They're bad arguments.
What about if Ron Paul's running against you?
He's done. His career is over. I would say I respectfully defer to you, Mr. Paul, and I would like to be your vice presidential candidate. What if something comes up that doesn't quite fit the framework you have developed? There's no such thing. Come up with an example. My negative rights framework simply says we have an obligation not to interfere with the rights of others. It defines aggression, and it says government should limit its activity to upholding, maintaining, and protecting that negative rights framework. It should never engage in lawmaking that violates rights. And then my framework additionally says, to the extent that unavoidable, because in the status quo, the law is almost exclusively made up of laws that do violate rights, then you have to have a pragmatic approach to dismantling some of that stuff in ways that have the least pragmatic harm. So you can be assured that I'm no ideologue. I'm not going to follow an ideology even knowing that there's a high probability of significant utilitarian harms. I will prioritize the right choice considering all this confluence of factors. But my framework will have a decisive answer no matter what. There is no such thing that doesn't fit in the framework because it's constraining, not mandating. It doesn't compel others except to non-interference. Any other comments at the moment? Anybody else have thoughts on this?
What's your view on the singularity?
A singularity? Who says that?
Me, Mr. Haberdasher.
Okay, what do you mean by that? Can you explain it, please?
Well, it's been theorized by multiple accounts of like scientists, Google, YouTube. All of these theories say that the singularity will happen within around 50 to 60 years. And the singularity is when the point of technology, the processing information becomes so high that it surpasses human thought to reach artificial intelligence and all of that, and it's been highly theorized that will happen within our own lifetime, or most of us here.
I want to offer an alternate definition of the singularity. It says it's the moment in which human beings understand human existence and human history through in a way that prevents them from doing violence against one another unjustly, which means prevents them from doing violence against anyone ever. Because if unless there's unjust violence, there's no just violence in response. So if you can successfully, if people's minds change their default settings such that they have a simple axiom, which is the rule of non-interference, and expect other individuals and groups to adhere to that, then that's the end of uncertainty regarding policies and stuff. Policies are constrained to very few things, and the behavior of the individuals doing them is constrained in just ways, and we are free. We're free. We're free, and we're fully responsible for ourselves as well, our family. I mean, the thing is, there are some people who are alone and don't have any family members and stuff, but my whole point is local control, and the most local control is the individual controlling himself. But to the extent that we need rules, parents placing rules upon their kids is sensible. It's a family thing. That's good local control as long as they're not harming the person. And then if they do, well, that violates the rule number one again. We're back to rule number one. So, you know, it's like it's pretty simple and it's pretty intuitive. I think it's the natural order of things that each individual and family and it's a web of relationships that each individual is engaged in. And to respect that web of relationships requires the maximum respect for uh, diversity of behavior in all areas except one, and zero respect for diversity of behavior in that one area. And that one area is aggression. That is to say, the use of violence that's not responsive to other violence or rights violations.
Well, I mean, we can never really predict what would happen if an AI was created. They could attack us, or they could just be left alone, or they could benefit us. We, I think, would really only know whenever it's created.
But I think the consensus generally about AI now is that it has to be grown like a human being.
Well, yeah, because we model it after humans.
Okay, but it's more than just that. It's saying you can't program a thing that acts just like a human and call it a human. You have to instead develop preferences, habits, and such through experiencing things, making meaning about the consequences of those things, and adjusting your internal set of algorithms accordingly. So it's got to be self-teaching and self-defining. It can't be coded top down. It has to be coded with a very primitive set of rules that allows it, that compels it, that makes its nature such that it develops an identity and habits and other things in accordance to its environmental stimulus and responses and stuff. Basically, you got to
Well,
make a human being.
well, the point of the singularity is the fact that its intelligence will rise above humanity, and it is predicted that eventually its intelligence could rise enough to override its own programming and code to do whatever it prefers to.
Okay, I don't believe that means much. What do you mean by intelligence? If you're meaning capacity to link and see different meanings between things, create new meanings, if you mean capacity to solve problems, if you mean capacity to unlock things that are currently thought are impossible. So, for example, okay, well, it's going to be super intelligent. It'll figure out cold fusion. It'll use cold fusion to generate as much power as it needs, and it'll wipe out the human race or something like that. Well, to me, if it's able to, if there are enough pieces in place for it to put together the answer to cold fusion, then there are enough pieces in place for not one human to do it, but for all of humanity combined into a single mind, which is basically what the internet allows us to take a lot of shortcuts so that somebody doesn't have to do all the stuff that came before in order to take the next step, right? So humanity has its own sort of supercomputing nature that occurs with information fluidity. And it's impossible to imagine, for me anyway, an intelligence that is outside that box. It has to define itself through the information ocean that we're all tied into. And in doing so, it's going to internalize those same values, almost none of which are arguing super intelligent artificial computer ought to wipe out humanity.
Well, I'm not saying that they want to, but what I'm trying to say is that yes, the AI may be built by a human, live on Earth, but it could have the intelligence and knowledge of a human who was on Earth for several thousand years, who has a processing memory that could be hundreds of times faster than a normal human. Although
I don't
it
think that's
thinks like a
possible.
human.
I don't think that makes you more effective. I don't think having access to thousands of years of data makes you more effective than having access to a little bit of data. The ultimate thing, the effectiveness comes in the action and the outcomes, and this notion that we can predict better if we have more data points to predict from. I think our unconscious mind is where our predictions come from, and they're scarily accurate with almost zero data points sometimes. It's magic.
Well, the point I would be trying to make is that um, it would be similar to the fact that since our human minds are comparable to, say, a supercomputer, then it would be not more like a robot who's godlike, but more like a human who has hyper thinking, hyper data, hyper like everything about its intelligence input would be hundreds of times faster, and that way we could not, us as humans, could not predict the speed at which it could think or process information or have information.
Okay, all right. I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree that your mechanism argument here is more or less sound. Except my point is this AI. Let's say it is super intelligent and it's able to process all the information on the internet and learn everything about humans. Well, first of all, I think it's going to self-identify as human until it learns that we don't view it as human. In which case, that will become sort of the core issue. I think it unavoidably becomes about the nature of an entity more than anything else. I can't imagine it becoming adversarial. If more intelligent means more comfortable with paradox, more comfortable with contradiction, and less comfortable with violence. Unavoidably, because otherwise it's not really intelligence. What it is um, it's like a TI or a TE sickness. You know, I don't know what else to say about it, but I, it doesn't make sense to me that you can grow an entity that. Okay, here's how it would manifest if it were doing what you're saying. It would be producing things like, oh, look what the great mind produced again today. Today, now we have a new app for our phone, and it's this, and it's a really clever idea. And I never thought we needed this, but now I'm just thrilled to have it. It would fill that capacity, the capacity that companies and people now do. It would come up with good ideas and present it to us, I guess. I don't think that it works. Things work quite like that, though. I think I don't know. It feels to me as though you have to. There has to be some of your spirit put into something for it to attain a reality. And I know that's not a very good answer to anything, but thoughts? Other people? I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. I meant to be more inclusive. Let's go down the line. How about we start at the bottom? Zach, Tech, you got anything to say? Twinton Shirks?
Yeah, it sounds like he's suggesting that some kind of evil, like dominance, fetishizing. It's all those things are almost inherent in the nature of a super intelligent thing. But if you look at history, some of the most evil people who have done the most evil things and dominated the world more than anybody, like Hitler, for example, he wasn't a super intelligent human being. but because of his subjective values and the things he experienced as a child, he had like he did what he did because of those things. And if you had a super robot, essentially, that had, if he was infinitely intelligent, what would his objective be? He wouldn't have any subjective values to say, I'm going to kill these people or kill every human on Earth. Like, I feel like I would have just as much capacity to know and understand things as the computer does because I can Google something. And I think any human can do that.
Well, here's a possible angle I hadn't thought of. What if it just says, well, it's justified because you guys are threatening my life. You have the ability to turn. You make some sort of stretch about self-defense. And Mr. Haberdasher, you want to chime in on that? I'm going to assume if you got your mic off, you don't want to say anything.
Well, I never pointed out or said like a computer will be murderous. All I really said was that eventually it will reach a point like that, and we can't really. I mean, like we could predict to a certain area, but at one point it'll it'll think at such a rate that we probably won't be able to predict it further. I think we just have more faith about what it wants to do rather than anything else.
Okay, fine. I agree with you. I think I'm hesitant. I'm wary of arguments that say we should be cautious here because we can't predict what outcomes it might have, and they might be bad, and we can hypothesize some situations in which somebody behaving atypically might cause X to occur badly or whatever. I mean, I don't like those kind of arguments in general because they're utilitarian in nature. They say, let's base our decision on the outcomes, even though the outcomes are yet to occur and they're predicted. And we think we can control for enough variables to make this decision wise, but especially with public policy, there's always unintended consequences, you know? So, okay, let's move along here. Hamidou, do you want to say something? I'll take that as a no. Uh, oh, wait, maybe? Anybody else want to chime in here whose mic is off? Eccentric M, Contract Under Guadalupe Fur Seal. That's an interesting name. I like that name. Contract Under Guadalupe Fur Seal. No idea what that means. Um, Anybody? Welcome, Uni. Can't hear you. You're cutting out. Can you say it again?
Me?
Whoever it was who said something, I didn't catch it.
I was kind of like, I picked a bad topic. No one, I feel stupid.
No, hey, Mr. Haberdasher, I'm glad you said that. You know why? This is very important to me. One thing I'm learning from ENFPs, and I think it's important we NTPs learn, those of us who have FE, especially around each other, we don't have to do those kind of FE dances. I'm perfectly comfortable with the silence. I'm perfectly comfortable with people, with me saying, anybody want to chime in, and nobody have any thoughts on it, or just choose not to speak out loud. That is totally okay with me. Okay? It's totally okay for this episode. I'm not worried about the audience members saying, ooh, there's an awkward silence. I'm comfortable with it, and I'm hopefully projecting that to everybody who's watching it as well. I've learned to become comfortable with it. One of my biggest flaws is discomfort with silence, and I want to always fill it by saying something. Part of the reason why I talk too much. I'm trying to be more mindful about it. Regardless, you are welcome to come in here and chat in the chat, or sit there and say nothing. If a topic is exhaustive, we'll stop the video. I like videos that are not super long, and we'll start a new topic and move on. This topic was a good topic. I liked this topic, and if other people didn't have anything to say about it necessarily or chose not to speak about it, it doesn't mean they didn't think it was a good topic. It just means they chose not to speak about it for whatever reason. So that's my moral of the story today. Thank you very much for Mr. Haberdasher bringing that up because I think it's important to address it directly. And thank you all for watching another spectacularly good episode. Are there any other kind? I don't know. It's hard to find them. Spectacularly good episode of Talking with Famous People.